Well, good afternoon, investors. Welcome to the June 24th, 2025 sweltering, scorching edition of Bull Sessions. I don't know how hot it is where you're at, but my wife and I played tennis in 97-degree heat last night. So you have every right to question our intelligence. We are still vertical today, so that's a good thing. But again, my name is Mark Robertson. I'm founder and managing partner of Manifest Investing and uh, sponsor of this broadcast, which is now nearly 5 years old. More on that in a few minutes. I'm joined here by my dear colleague from the Northlands, Ken Kavula. Good afternoon, Ken.
Good afternoon, Mark. It's a warm day up here as well. We're maybe a 1 degree below where you are, but we're in the same kind of humidity and everything. I related to everybody that we tried to go out gardening at 7:45 this morning when it was 82 degrees, and us Michiganders just aren't used to 82 at 7:45 in the morning.
Turn back.
Yeah, turn back, right.
Well, as Matt would say, that's Tuesday for him. So good afternoon, Matt from Houston.
Good afternoon.
And Matt Spielman will be joining us tonight for the roundtable. We're also joined by Kim Butcher. Good afternoon, Kim.
Afternoon, everyone. It's a sweltering 91 here with a heat index at 103.
Oh,
Oh, we're tied.
ow.
Thank God I have a new air conditioner.
All right, so we're going to just cover a couple of things. We will have an abbreviated session, although I will warn you guys, I found a whole bunch of snippets and nuggets that we're going to talk about, so might run a little bit longer than usual in a session that precedes the roundtable, but we'll step through, and then we'll also step through pretty quickly our exploration of these annual postings or annual summaries of bull sessions. So we're taking them 1 year at a time over the next several weeks. Pamplona is a tribute to the fact that I believe the Pamplona week begins July 7th and goes through the 14th. Our birthday's on the 20th. So my message to all of you, if you're a fan of bull sessions, is you can begin celebrating now and continue through July 20th. Okay,
yeah, that's
Ken?
a bogus slide on the left there, folks. Mark and I have never been together in Punxsutawney, okay?
That was not, Photoshop has never been used on any of our slides. All right, go ahead, Matt. Bring us to our.
I just wanted to congratulate you on the right with the poignant and tangible demonstration of the rule of five. In my first view, there are three gentlemen running ahead of the market. I mean, ahead of the bulls, and they're in danger, but they're in control. Of course, one has stumbled and has caught the interest, and if he's lucky, the market will just pass him by. But if not, he might be trampled into something unrecognizable. And then my first thought was, and then you have the fifth one who's so far ahead he's not even in the picture. But I do see there actually are four standing runners. There's a head on the other side, so there is just one guy ahead of the others anyway. So that might be reusable.
That could be. I mean, that statue is in Pamplona. My daughter has actually been there for the race. She did not run in the actual running of the bulls, but yeah, that guy on the ground, those are pretty sharp horns headed in his general direction. So
yeah, it's shiny. It's been used.
Yeah.
Those horns.
And they will toss human beings, like 20 feet in the air. So it can be a moment that you.
I think that's kind of how it feels when you have one of those rule of five stocks happen too.
It does, and I have enough investing experience that I've done that a few times. All right.
And not to change the subject, but our friend Steve Emmerich has an AI engine that writes limericks for him.
Oh
so
no!
He has a Wall Street limerick for the heat, and I'm not going to read it, but it ask your AI engine folks next time you're experimenting with the AI stuff to write you a limerick and give it a subject. Evidently, that works.
We'll get him to recite it at Heart of Illinois breakfast tomorrow morning. So
tomorrow morning, and save it for tomorrow morning, right?
Good stuff. All right. Here is our standard disclaimer. No investment recommendation is intended. This is all about education and demonstrating the philosophies, methods, and techniques of the modern investment club movement. Do your own homework. We are not your boss. Make your own decisions about any of this stuff. If you'd like copies of the slides, or if you have questions or suggestions for future topics, our 2 email addresses are down there at the bottom. Anything else we should add there, Ken?
No, this is getting shorter and shorter. We should be able to do this slide in 4 seconds eventually. Let's keep going, Mark. Okay.
All right, very quickly. I don't know what it is about the Houston, Austin, Dallas area, but Portillo's likes it. How close is Humble, Texas, Matt and Ann?
Humble is right by actually it's right by the airport if you're coming or going. There's one already in Cypress, is a little closer to us, but not far from there.
All right, so you're getting Portillo's diversification down there.
Backup plans.
Good stuff. And amazingly enough, business is so strong at Portillo's that they have actually gone with a new form of DoorDash that was provided by, of all people, Kevin Gologly. And they're branching out, and apparently they're delivering enough product that they needed that type of equipment. So it's a good sign.
Okay, next slide.
All right. And on the right, again, Portillo's, we're seeing actually a diminishing amount of relish, a threat of ketchup, and that's not a good thing, probably. All right.
I want to thank you for talking about Portillo's, because I know whatever happens, we always can get a chuckle out of it. Right, Ken?
Right.
Whichever way it goes, we're going to have a story, right? All right. And
Yeah.
this is a special edition slide for Kim. Apparently, the best gas station in the United States, or the best pizza, is at a gas station in Evansville, Indiana.
And it's good.
And Matt has advised me that they're using Casey's as their company in their stock study sessions. Is that correct? Is that the Casey's?
For a retailer with a cyclical product, it's pretty up straight and parallel. I wouldn't say it's going to be in the buy zone right now. It's had quite a nice run on the price, but a good study. Okay. and a approachable topic, or approachable product. Something you can sink your teeth into.
So what style of pizza do you think that would be called? That's definitely not Detroit style. I don't know what it is, but it's not Chicago style. So
no, it's a traditional round. I don't know if they do. I'm sure they do thin crust too. I don't know if they do. I don't think they do deep dish. They have limited production facilities in the convenience store.
Ah,
there you go. Now everybody here knows it. All right, so again, the Pamplona statue, part of our theme. We're going to talk about our theme for tonight, which is the crusade that's going on. We're going to look back at bull session stuff. I was converted to country music 30 years ago by my brother and his wife. And actually, my first concert ever was Reba McEntire. I think that quote's a pretty powerful one also. So have fun with that one. All right. Some quick perspectives on stuff. Back to our basically normal chart. Approximately 10 years of runtime for most of the positions, unless they say something different than 6/30/2015 in the performance since column. But what you're looking at are the most widely followed companies, with a couple of special twists, by Manifest Investing subscribers. And we know that a number of you, a number of us, hold many of those companies. I think I'm standing at about 7 out of 10 of those, although I did shed my CVS, which means it's probably going to take off like a rocket. Well, did actually shed that. And Ken, I know you own almost all of those up at the top of the chart.
I owe 8 out of the top 10. No, 9 out of the top 10. I do not own Home Depot, but I own 9 of the other ones. But CVS is being held onto by her fingernails by my wife, and Cognizant is a very small holding in a taxable account, and I just don't want to take the capital gain on it.
Yeah, and what's your cost basis in Cognizant? Just tease the audience here, Ken. Your cost basis.
Probably under $2.
There you go. Yeah. So capital gains are a true consideration. All right. Yeah. So the cluster of indexes in the middle of the page or the bottom third of the page is basically for those who choose the route of passive investing. Nothing wrong with that. It's right for a great number of people, but we just like to point out that we actually do own those companies at the top, and they're not impossible to find. Our never-ending quest, there's that crusade thing again, is to discover the ones that are going to look this good 10 years from now, and we're always on the look for that. Interestingly enough, tonight's roundtable, we are back to, in fact, as of yesterday, we were for a while we're at a 3% relative return, but over the long term, we're talking about approximately 16% return on the roundtable. We consider that to be a flesh and blood actual demonstration of investing. And let's see if I can get my cheater to work here. This number right here is, oh, both of them. That 15 to 16% range can be very powerful over the long term. Yeah, in fact, the 15.8 crept up above the 15.6, and I didn't resort.
Yeah, you didn't.
Any thoughts here, Ken? Other than I'm gonna block this one out so nobody can see it. And
well, you know, to be fair, Mark, when you're looking at less than 1 year returns, the numbers are always extremely volatile. So we're looking at just barely, maybe a year and a half now, maybe 18 months. In fact, not even 18 months yet. So Buttonwood's going to do okay. We just have to give it a little bit of patience and keep our discipline.
just
Are
need
you
time and
going to
money.
mention the Ethereum that's up there in the thing? We don't normally put a piece of
Oh,
crypto onto the list.
how did that sneak on there? Well, interestingly enough, Ethereum, going back to 2017, has a pretty decent return. And we are going to talk about that in one of our nuggets here in a minute. One last thing to point out here. Normally, this value line arithmetic average is up here somewhere. And it will be again someday, but it isn't now. So we will talk about Ethereum here in a minute or so. But yeah, it's there for a reason. It's not an accident.
Well, and the Dow is at the lower point of the long-term average too. We always call the average 9 to 11, and the Dow's down almost to 9 now. So it's lagging things a little bit as well.
Yeah, that could have changed since this morning too.
It's a good day in the markets. I don't know why, but it is.
Yeah,
So,
you can't explain it, but mine is doing extremely well today. So that's a knock on wood that you hear in the background. All right, what's going on here?
I see Betsy's in our audience, Betsy Wills from Colorado, and boy, did they have nice things to say about toast. Our friend Josh Brown had wonderful, nice things to say about toast today in one of the morning programs. He's calling it one of his 5 best stocks, 5 best calls for the year. So take a look at Toast, folks, TOST. Betsy made a presentation on it a month or so ago for us, and it's really performing quite well.
Thanks, Ken. Now I got to change my presentation for tonight.
Oh.
and switch it to Toast. I'll jump on the Betsy Wills bandwagon anytime. All right, nothing unusual here. Our look at the market, although we will be locking in that last quarterly bar on the right here within a couple of days. And it's not a catastrophe. We're not back to the normal long-term trend yet. We believe in regression to the trend, not regression to the mean. And this chart kind of backs that up a little bit.
Well, and with all the volatility, Mark, we really haven't had a year or a quarter that's really been bang up. The S&P is only up about 1% since January 1st. Mm-hmm. So we really haven't done a lot of movement. If you took a big long 6-month nap, you would think the market is pretty much the same as it was at New Year's. So.
Yep, Sleepy Hollow market. Major takeaway from this page is the average return forecast for a stock right now is approximately 9%, maybe 9 to 10. All right. All right, a little bit of reinforcement on a topic we introduced last week, and I got a few letters on it, so they wanted me to just kind of go over it again, just real quickly. And this is just my perspective on how to look at the debt characteristics with respect to the capital structure of any company. In this case, it's Apple. I was kind of amused to see the progression of logos at Apple. They started with the one on the left. That was actually artwork put together by Ron Wayne. Have you ever heard the name Ron Wayne associated with Apple? He was
I don't think I have. No.
he was one of the three original guys, and
Ah,
he sold his stake. I don't remember the number. It's a ridiculous number for like 1/3 of Apple for like $8,000 in the mid 1970s.
that sounds like something you or I would do, Mark. Okay.
All right, but we
He had
digress.
a good gain on it up till then.
Yeah, he'd probably made 20% on his investment at the time. But again, when you're thinking about a company, and it really does translate to a personal perception or a personal perspective on debt. And one is, how much do you have? How much debt do you have? In the case of Apple, they have $100 billion worth of debt. Okay, how does that compare to their income, which would be their sales for a given year? And the answer to that is 25%. That's not a lot. They basically are getting money from banks pretty cheaply. When they first started when they started taking on long-term debt, they were getting interest rates of 0.2 or 0.5%. I think all of us in the audience would take that. And they did. And that's how the number built up to what it is. Now, if you take a look at their total debt picture, their mortgage and the amount of annual interest that they pay, that's what this number is down here. That's their annual interest. This is the size of their mortgage. So this is their effective interest rate. And that also is very telling about, what the banks, and the banks are very good at figuring out whether a company is likely to pay them back. It's something they are very good at. They don't make a heck of a lot of mistakes. And in this case, they would judge Apple to be a very low risk company to loan money to. For one thing, they have $50 billion in their wallet. So they can pay off half their debt just by writing a check. Okay. So again, these two numbers, how much debt do you have? How does it compare to your annual income? And again, that same number that we've used when we talked about real estate, I'll leave California out of the discussion this week, Ken. 25, 30, 35% is a fairly normal number for a consumer. And of course, interest rates, interest rates. I mean, interest rates right now are 6 or 7% on a mortgage. I don't know what it costs for a car. But again, it's a reflection of the bank wanting to be repaid and reflect the risk that they're assuming is reflected in that interest rate.
I would also hazard a guess, Mark, that because they have so much cash on hand, that they chose to do a lot of borrowing during times when interest rates were even for the normal person were much lower than they are today.
Definitely.
And they probably hooked in long-term loans, that have a fixed interest rate or an interest rate that stays variable in a very small band, and because they thought they could make more money on the money they had to borrow than they had to pay on interest. They were in essence doing the same thing that a bank does when a bank sets up its own business.
Mm-hmm. And by the way,
in fact, there was another angle on top of that, Ken. The lion's share of what they took out was at a time when, if they were to distribute that earned cash to investors through dividends, that would have been taxed. It was overseas earnings that would have been repatriated. And so it's kind of bad. Always be skeptical if you hear the company took out loans in order to buy back stock. That's not usually a good thing. But in Apple's case, they had offshore cash that they were continuing to invest, but looking to for the right time to bring it home or do something else with. And this allowed them a mechanism to give shareholder returns at very reasonable costs and much cheaper than the taxes they would have had to pay immediately.
Yeah, you'd expect them to have some fairly decent auditors and CPAs working for them, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, taking care of a bunch of money. All right, so let's get to current topics. This slide is from a few days ago, so things have changed, believe it or not. In fact, they've changed at least twice in the last 24 hours. What is interesting about this, because we as a community have been tracking a couple of investments, one being InMode, the other one being Nice out of Tel Aviv, and Israeli stocks have been going up steadily despite this conflict.
Yeah, add
And
Checkpoint software to that list as well, Mark.
absolutely. And they're going along pretty steady. And again, I just continue to marvel at the engineering and the execution of the Iron Dome. I believe they had several thousand missiles aimed at them as recently as yesterday, and only one made it through. And I don't think that one even detonated completely. It's just amazing. So their attitude, in fact, this number is up huge from where it was even 2 days ago, the Israeli stock market index. So that's just a perspective moment. I think that if that geopolitical situation calms down over there, it could be quite good. I do own shares of Nice. We have talked about InMode at Roundtable, so they're out there, and of course Checkpoint. It's a very popular holding.
Yeah, I no longer own InMode, but I do own Nice and I do own Checkpoint. Yes, in club holdings, not in personal holdings.
All right. And here's just a quick look at kind of the stuff that's been going on lately. I just put this one up here because I wanted to scratch my head over it. I'm still scratching. That's a wild miss on the forecast for estimated fair value on the S&P 500. It's just amazing to me. And the difference now is being hailed as one of the larger differences in time, and it should cast some aspersion on the average analyst estimate. And we like to share the clarion on the right. Anytime we see that, it's basically time to go shopping.
What the heck was going on in 21 or 22 that caused those fair value estimates to go up so dramatically?
It's the COVID stimulus stuff. And
COVID and okay, all right, well.
And remember how optimistic and exuberant they seem to get over some of those companies at the very top of the market cap index, Magnificent Seven and beyond. I mean, we were looking at exploding expectations back then. So, whatever. It's just Mark having a moment. And then I like this one, Ken, because you haven't given up on this theme. I keep getting tempted to go back in. Some major super investors have basically stuck both feet in the Chinese swimming pool here within the last year. But this is this is hot off the press. This is from last week in the Wall Street Journal.
Mark, did you insert the piggy bank picture, or is that theirs?
That's theirs. That's straight out of the Wall Street Journal.
I don't know if that was part of the inside joke.
You think that
It's pork, Mark. It's pork. Come on. You didn't even get that, did you?
I didn't get it. I do now. I do now.
It's not fish. It's not electronics. Pork.
I don't know. I was listening. Go ahead, Ken.
Folks, to put this discussion in perspective and to not keep it a joke between three people, when we first began the roundtable, we were really hot on a couple of Chinese stocks. One of them was a Chinese medical stock that was doing traditional Chinese medicine, and the other one was a purveyor of pulled pork, a pork producer and distributor. the Chinese people are the largest consumers of pork in the world. And this was, the ticker was HO, no, the ticker wasn't hog. That was somebody else. What was the ticker for that
Oh, it
pulled
was
pork?
hogs,
Was it
H-O-G.
hog?
Yeah.
HOGS, that's right,
Yeah.
HOGS.
G
Okay.
is
And then we found out that both companies were nothing more than storefronts, and nobody could even find an employee, let alone employees of the companies. They had beautiful pictures of their places where people worked and the factories, and it was all just pictures. That's all that it was. But they were reaping a lot of money from the U.S. stock market listing on the NASDAQ.
Yeah, and this was back before AI and all the the artificial video and all that kind of stuff. So that it was quite a moment. And I was reminded as I saw this of the couple of sessions we did, and I'm sure it'll come up as we look back at the chronology of bull sessions. We talked about the China hustle, I believe, or whatever they called it. Well, that'll come up as we dig deeper into that going forward. The series that we did.
Yeah.
All right, so here's Ethereum. This actually did come up on the chronology. Back in 2021, I had bought some Ethereum just because I wanted to see what it was like. And
Nah, just because, period.
well, it was kind of just because, and I am not exaggerating or embellishing one iota when I say I sold it in between serves on a tennis court. Took out my cell phone and sold it back in September, I think, 2021, after a fairly sizable gain. But I
And your
learned,
wife found out about it.
well, that may have been related.
Might have been the impetus. Huh?
So I don't know where I was talking about this, but somebody said, well, you don't have to buy it directly. And by the way, it is, without going too deeply into it, it is related to gaming. It is related in the efficiency of gaming and blockchain. So it is one of the cryptocurrencies that really has kind of a reason to live, if you want to think of it that way. And you can see the stock price chart on the left. It has had a fairly steady run. It's also had a pretty narrow trading range over the last several years. So there could be some opportunity there. And somebody sent me this listing of ETFs. So you don't have to invest in it directly if you want to avoid that. I don't know what that does to your income tax filing because they have a special treatment, a special classification for cryptocurrency. At least they did back when I did it. So that's the
Well,
reason it's on here, Ken. That's the reason it was on the
maybe
performance chart.
maybe the biggest thing to learn from this entire slide is when you're buying an ETF, check the fees. Look at
Yeah.
the difference in the fees down that list, going from Grayscale at 2.5% to Grayscale Ethereum Mini Trust going at 0.2 or 0.15%. So certainly a difference in fee structure.
And I can't speak to the precise difference between the two, but it's out there. I would probably lean on iShares or one of the more Fidelity, perhaps, if I was going to do this. I haven't decided. Anyhow, that's why that's there, Ken. Then I thought this would answer a pretty interesting question. I had made a comment about the relative level of dividends for common stocks back when all of these books we've been talking about were written in the 40s, 50s, and into the 60s. And I think this one gives you a pretty good perspective of what those levels have been over the
Well,
years.
let's tie this to a number, Mark, that Nicholson wrote about being able to have a sales growth in a club portfolio of around 12%. And that was how you were going to move towards that 15% goal, which is basically beating the market by 5 points. And Nicholson made up the extra money then, or the extra percentage, by saying the dividends would make up some of that 3% lack, and PE expansion would make up the rest of that 3% lack. Well, we don't have that today. We don't have that dividend, that healthy dividend at around 5-6%. Our dividends, we're lucky to get them up at 2% even. So in order to balance that out, we feel, and the study that Mark's put together on some of the mutual funds that we're looking at kind of prove the axiom that in today's world, you need to get your sales growth up around 13.5% in order to hit that 15% or beat the market by 5 points goal. So there's some real use to putting a table like this together and coming up with this decision here.
Yeah, I also find this interesting. What is one of the major, we'll call it a cause of the lost decade? It's right there.
Yeah.
It was a tough time. And after overheating a little bit and relaxing back. But when you look back at the returns over the last 40 or 50 years, those numbers are pretty strong, even with that the -1 figured in there. So again, gives you a different perspective. And as Ken was saying, when we chart successful funds over the trailing 10 years, all of the companies at the top have anywhere from 10 to 14% average sales growth. And when you go down the chart, it's stark. We'll put a chart together and take another look at that probably when we close out this 6-month period. All right. Anything else here, sir?
No, I'm kind of fascinated by the oscillation in PE values. I didn't realize it was so distinct. So it's huge. It's big. And I didn't realize that happened to such a great extent over history here.
Yeah. Interesting
Maybe
stuff.
it makes some of those rules about never do something past some number. Maybe it makes us stop and think about those rules if PEs oscillate so much,
Mm-hmm. All right, on to the groundhogs. I'm still not on the list, so we can move on. No, we'll stay here for just a minute. 2/3 of you are still beating the market without me. Average groundhog is about 2%. The monkey's still 142nd, so I'm still sub monkey. And what's our investment club count up to this week, Ken? There's a
It's
number.
still at 12. We just can't get past 12 in the top 40, Mark.
No, there's a number 51 through
we
60.
have
So
in the top 50 we have 13, but we've been my data started being collected at top 40, so I'm still doing that. But we can't get past 12, and the 40th one is a club. Bauer City is in 40th place. They have moved down the list instead of up the list. So I'm very pleased to see my grandson and my fellow Wolf on the top 20 there. But watch out, guys. Look who's at 24. Just watch out.
could be an interesting Sunday dinner here pretty soon. Good stuff from top to bottom. Again, a number of our community participants are on the chart. So I will just say that since I'm at about 180th, there's several months left in this contest.
There's been a little juggling around in 1, 2, 3, 4, Mark, but for the most part, that 1, 2, 3, 4, those four names have stayed up there. They've moved up one place or down one place occasionally in the last 6 or 8 weeks, but that's a pretty solid group of folks up there at 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like Dan might be making a move to join them in that above 1.2 million, but we'll have to see. But they've stayed at that level for a long time now. Mr. Griffith, Mr. Kempitzer, and Mr. Weaver. So
yeah, and Betsy's making a pretty strong one. I think it's kind of fascinating that Badger is $3 ahead of Weaver. That's wow, just $3. All right, moving on. I have nothing else here. I'll get depressed. All right, quick look at some of the fun that we can have with funds and comparison. A number of you out there love dividends. These are two source of interesting in investable dividend ideas if you don't own them directly, VIG and VYM, and it's kind of a cage match by the folks at Morningstar. The two are fairly comparable. They're relatively high quality. Dividend appreciation's a little bit higher growth, a little bit more yield from the other one. And again, we take a look at those characteristics at the top in combination with that actual performance down at the bottom. Those numbers are all good, especially for those type of investments, which are going to be relatively less volatile and a little more stable. But 10 to 12% is pretty good for those that need that in their portfolios.
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned when I look at the comparisons between a growth fund and a dividend fund, Mark, because I'm asking myself, I know that these funds throw off taxable entities every year, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm wondering, I'm pretty sure the growth fund is taxed as a capital gain in most cases. I'm wondering if the things that the dividend funds throw off are taxed as normal income. I kind of think they are if the gains are coming primarily from dividends. I would want to investigate that before I made a firm decision on what I was going to invest in, because if you're taxed at normal income on the money that's being thrown off, that's a lot different than being taxed at capital gains rates. So
Yeah, these are pretty tax efficient. I would have to look more closely at, I own Vanguard Growth, and that is the cornerstone of our Bare Naked Millions. So
yeah,
I've
as do I. I use VUG as a holding. Well, I used to use it for all of my extra money, but now I've been using VUG and JEPI, and like I said, either last roundtable or two roundtables ago, I've been experimenting with these option, these super option ones that we talked about a couple of roundtables ago, Mark. I'll have something to report maybe in a month or two about how they tend to be doing and how reliable they tend to throw off their dividends, you know, or their whatever you call them. They're not dividends, but whatever you call their profits.
Yeah, and distributions and all that.
Yeah.
And if I sound ignorant on this subject, it's because I am. I keep any mutual funds and most ETFs in qualified accounts, so I really don't feel the taxes, at least not until I'm a few years older. So
Eventually you will, let me tell you.
yeah.
Okay.
Here's just a quick look at where those numbers come from. They're just for your reference purposes. You will see a lot of familiar names. When you buy Vanguard dividend appreciation, this is exactly what you're buying. And you will recognize, I think, every ticker on that list. Lindy is the Air Products company, but everybody else is pretty much a household name. And you see where the numbers come from. Here is the high dividend yield. Very much the same, although I think they snuck AVGO, which is Broadcom. Broadcom is on here. It's not on the other, at least not in the top 25. But again, from top to bottom, we know basically all those companies.
Yeah, I think Broadcom was up. The last I looked at it was almost up $9 today.
There you go.
Is PM the old Philip Morris, Mark? Is that what that is?
It is.
Okay. They have a different name now, don't they?
Philip Morris, and then, well, they've got all kinds of food spin-offs and international spin-offs, and
okay.
Yeah,
all right.
They're not the company. All right, that's about how much I want to talk about Buttonwood today.
Good.
I'm just doing this to change our luck, Ken. We're not going to look at the portfolio. We're not going to talk about how
good,
how depressed I am.
We hope it grows. It has room to grow.
Patience, discipline, right?
Moving on.
Long-term investors, Mark. Okay.
Okay, I hear you. Doesn't mean you might have to call the fire department to pull me out of the tree next to the cat. But okay. All right. Let's talk about companies we like to discover and own. This is courtesy of Candace Baker at the roundtable a couple months ago. This is Comfort Systems. It is very similar to the company that Ken will present tonight, IES Holdings. And again, they're in making buildings come to life with water and electricity and all that kind of stuff. But the thing we like about Comfort Systems is their cash flow is consistently increasing. And that's a pretty picture. You purists out there that are looking at 2017 over 2016, it doesn't look like much, but it is 4 cents per share. So it is increasing for 17 over 16. So we have been talking about the cash flow aristocrats for a number of weeks. And I just wanted to make everybody aware that you can actually screen on these now. I think I told you last week, this is probably going to become one of my favorite screening alternatives, right up there with the triple play and ivory soap and the crazy stuff that Hugh McManus does. But this will be another one that I use on a fairly regular basis. And if you simply go to our published dashboards on the homepage, you will be taken to them. Or if you're not a Manifest Investing subscriber, and I know I shouldn't give this away, but there you go. Those are two public links to the A and B dashboards. Here's the actual listings that you will see when you click on that box from the previous page. So we're talking about the A list and the B list. The only difference is A are the faster growers, 8% or more, and the B group, solid companies, but they just aren't growing quite as fast. Okay, so again, from the home page, click on more, click on the one that you want to look at, or go directly using those links at the bottom of the page. You'll be taken to these two lists. I think these are pretty complete lists. You can see that the A list is a little bit bigger than the B, but some very interesting companies on these two lists. How is this beginning to coalesce for you, Ken? What are you thinking?
Well, I think they're interesting lists, Mark, but I think that what it avoids is finding new ideas. If I'm looking for stocks where I'm not necessarily looking for new ideas, but I'm just looking for reliable performers, then these lists become very important to me. But if I'm looking for a new idea, I think a lot of our newer ideas that are doing quite well maybe only have 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 years of consistent cash flow. They don't have that 10-year history that we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So the one I'm going to present tonight, for example, would not show up on either of these lists because it's basically reinvented itself 3.5 years ago. And it went from a pretty standard industrial company to somebody that does a lot of work in data centers, and its business just took off, you know.
Sure.
So I don't want to say that there's no value in the lists, but I'm also doing other kinds of screening because I want to stay abreast of especially newer, smaller companies that are coming into the realm of interesting. And you know, a lot of the things that I look at on a regular basis would never make a list like this.
It's really kind of fascinating sitting here just cogitating over you're defending the search for smaller, companies, and I'm the one that's not usually in the core category. It couldn't just be that you're bitter over me selecting 3 core companies for the National Convention panel, right?
Well, I picked 2 out of 3, so.
No, I never intended or would limit to what I just said. This I'm talking core now. If I'm looking for core stuff, this is a place to turn. I agree 10,000% that there are some great small company areas that wouldn't qualify. All right, here's just a quick definition from Perplexity as to why this is important, why these do qualify for the core portfolio, which, by the way, folks, is 80% of Ken's portfolios. So
80% plus.
Plus, yep. So
Yeah.
again, that's why we want them. So we've got the A list and the B list, and this is for the Heart of Illinois chapter and their infatuation with shoes. That is not one of my shoes, but It probably resembles some of my shoes. But wait, there's more. There's a C list.
What does his T-shirt say? We don't go back. Keep going.
Oh, yeah. I think it's a reference to Doge.
Okay.
All right. So there is a C list. And amazingly enough, there's actually more companies of community interest in the C list than the other two in general. These are companies that had one bad year in the last 10. So they've got 9 out of 10. So they're in the contender or the candidate pile. And notice there's some pretty good opportunities here. Might even fit the description in a small way of what Ken was just talking about. Perhaps a company that doesn't have the 10 years, but they're just approaching the 10 years. Anyhow, pretty good
Or
list
it
of companies.
picks out a company, Mark, that has a lot of cash flow on a regular basis, but has made a big mistake, and the market has severely punished them. I think that's the case with United Health Group.
Yeah,
The tariff argument has severely punished Lululemon. The same thing with Deckers. It's the tariff argument that's driven them out of cash flow consideration once or twice. So very interesting list of companies. I indicated that 4 of the ones on this list I sold within the last 18 months, either in a club situation or from my personal portfolio, and I've never looked back. And that includes T. Rowe Price and Booz Allen. So interesting, Mark, very interesting.
well, the prices are still down from you did sell them. Now I covered United Health in the roundtable last, but tonight Ann is going to cover Deckers, Cypic, Pulte. Yeah, Ken was tempted to do T. Rowe Price, but he apparently wasn't forgiving him that.
I was tempted to do T. Rowe Price, but I keep in the back of my head this word that keeps talking to me, this voice that keeps saying, "Don't forget Costco, don't forget Costco," and the mistake that we made in Costco, and that's when you find a really good company and then you never talk about it for the next 5 years, you know. So I think that's what I'm going to present tonight is a
Yeah,
company that I really think has a lot of potential, and I'm not going to stop talking about it after one presentation. So
absolutely.
maybe after 2, but not after 1.
And Costco is one of those companies that if you're out there looking for 15 to 20% returns, they don't happen very often. In fact, we'll have to take a look, but 12% is probably a pretty good number. All right, so here is a piece of evidence for the let's convince Ken that there's more here to this. There's more meat on this bone. This is a Ken convincer slide. We're not naming the company, but we're actually showing the operating cash flow of the company over time. And you can see that whatever's going on with this company, it wasn't pretty in 2021, 2022, or 2023. The stock price down at the bottom shows kind of a similar pattern. This disruption of cash flow in 2021 shows up down here a little bit, but there was recovery. And I guess the other thing that kind of grabs me here, Ken, is the big price decline is a long time after this starts happening. So you asked me beforehand, is it time to run for the hills? But no, I think extra vigilance. Maybe
Well,
this is a. Go ahead,
I
Ken.
think that the placement of the graphs kind of emphasizes that length of time. I guess I would like to see the graphs, Mark, with the x-axis the same on both graphs. And then I think that I'd get a better idea of how the cash flow is relating to the price. That wide x-axis up at the top there really kind of distorts when it's happening. I'm seeing the price decline start in 2021, and I guess it's starting right as we go from positive to negative, isn't it?
Yeah, the steeper,
Yeah,
unrelenting drop.
yeah, the
Yeah,
unrelenting drop. Yeah.
yeah,
So I told you before we started that maybe a good rule for cash flow is when it goes negative, run for the hills. it appears if this company is representative of a lot of companies, negative cash flow signals significant problems with price.
Yeah, so in soccer or football for the rest of the world, lingo, it certainly deserves a yellow card when you start approaching. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a yellow card situation.
Yep, yep.
And then when it stays there for a while, at some point along the way, this becomes a red card. And, you know, again, that the price was dropping, as Ken was pointing out, all along here. Anyhow, when the cash flow starts dropping off the table, I think your company definitely has to go into timeout, be yellow carded or red carded.
Well,
I
then
mean,
a third negative year in a row really gives you a huge drop. Got that drop in 2024 when they had their third negative cash flow year.
yep.
Yeah.
So good stuff. And then here's just a different perspective on the company. A competitor basically emerged around 2020-ish. And if you're not familiar with this company's products, they're pretty interesting. I keep seeing them showing up in the arsenal of both my daughter and my wife. And I'm actually been tutored on how to use some of the tools. We'll leave that there.
Mark, I'll tell you where I've seen Shark's name showing up much greater extent than I ever thought I would see it, and that's in Consumer Reports.
Yeah.
When you start reading Consumer Reports for practical gadget after practical gadget after practical gadget, the Shark Ninja products are ranked near the top almost consistently. So they've come out of nowhere and suddenly are challenging the longtime brand names, not only in price but in quality. So that's an interesting way to run a business, I think.
And I would point out that this cash flow here and out here is $7 or $9 or $10. Compare that to the maximums up here. So the company at the top is iRobot. So that's the Roomba people. And I don't know if they were in our best small companies at some point along the way or not, but they certainly, and by the way, that is a tribute to the 50th anniversary of the release of Jaws, one of the scariest movies I've ever seen.
Well, I think the difference between the two companies, Mark, is that you can't go to a Sam's or a Costco or a BJ's or any place like that and not see brand new Shark Ninja products every single time you go. There's always something branded Shark Ninja, and it's brand new, always. They've moved into all kinds of other products, and meanwhile, Roomba has, you were able to tell me besides the vacuum, they have a lawnmower. I'm not sure they did much branching out with any technology that they might have had that was proprietary.
Yeah, and we love the Roomba. It's, you know, we could live without it, but I would also point out that this is the vice president of product development at Shark Ninja. And I'm not going to say anything that will get me into trouble with respect to gender, but sometimes I think one gender is better.
Young. Well, but just say that she's also young, Mark. She's very well. You know, I'm just looking at it. I'm not very good anymore at my age and guessing other people's ages, but I would guess her under 40. You know.
Yeah. They are notorious for getting it right. You know, when they design their products, and I have been extremely impressed. So more on that. All right, so we have just a few minutes. I want to just very quickly make everybody aware that we're going through all of the bull session discussions going back over the last 5 years. And there's Matt's rule of 5 picture on the right. I'm not going to be able to look at that again without thinking rule of 5. But we are going to put together a complete compendium. I just want to give you guys a taste of where I think this is going. It's still a work in progress. But again, as you know, we've presented on a lot of topics over the years. You see the bulls erupting, and of course, we've supported the roundtables and all kinds of forays into different investing activities. We're not going to go through these and read them,
well,
but
we had a really nice template for our opening slides for a while there, didn't we? One back just a second, Mark. I mean,
You mean
They
that right here?
they don't have pictures of you or me on them for the most part, and that's good. All right.
Yeah,
So
but
I don't
you
know,
want
somewhere that the things changed. I don't know when, but it did.
you want to show off that chiseled new. Anyhow, upper left corner. I mean that this one up here, I think, is one of our best covers of all time. The two guys from Trading Places doing that. But yeah, it was a nice template. But we also were told that none of those animals at the top of the page are bulls.
We're
So
bulls.
yeah,
Okay.
that made it kind of compromised. So what we're doing is going and basically loading in just the YouTube presentations into Notebook LM. And again, we don't want to beat the topic to death, but we find it to be fascinating. And we're going quarter by quarter and looking at the high. All you do is load that in, load the 12 or 13 sessions in the YouTube links. That's all you load in, and ask for a discussion document, and you get this. This is Notebook LM basically summarizing the discussions. And you'll notice these dates. We're going to actually go live and show you that as you scroll through these. First of all, I think just reading it, and we're certainly not going to sit here and read it, but I'm impressed by the fact that we were looking at Palantir back in 2021, talking about RSI, talking about various aspects. And I think what this can develop into, as I'll show you in a minute, if you find a topic which you want to dig in a little bit deeper, whether it's on a specific company or a topic, you can follow the links in the forum. So if you're a Manifest Investing subscriber, you want to find this document in the forum, I'll show you where to do that. And you can actually chase the links that will take you to the PDF and the YouTube session if you want to go deeper on a subject.
I like the fact that it picks up that we both admit we're inept at speculation. Okay.
They seem to enjoy picking on us a little bit, so
Yeah.
that's okay. All right, and then of course all the concepts. Core versus non-core might be something you want to chase down. We were talking about projected return on value as early as January 2021, perhaps even a little bit before that. Again, from top to bottom, you just run into opportunities to dig a little bit deeper into this stuff. So I was kind of enchanted that apparently we've been talking green brick for almost 5 years. So Matt, thank you.
I was just going to say, an unintroduced, you're welcome.
Good stuff. And of course, Matt's whole session on Air Lease. We just liberated Air Lease from the roundtable portfolio at a fairly massive gain over the last few years. So good stuff. Again, this is all from just one quarter, by the way. Everything that you see here is from first quarter 2021. So I can't wait till we've got them all and I can stack them up and shoot for one document to see what we end up with. So that will be some fun. So this wraps up, again, very specifics about some of the areas, some Kramer stuff, actually tributes to Kramer in many cases. We give him an equal opportunity amount of praise and admonishment, and right down to books or themes that we have talked about over. Again, this is all during first quarter 2021. All right, so you've got second quarter 2021. We're still sticking with that traditional cover. Here is the third quarter 2021. Again, you may remember some of those discussions. Nice tribute to a number of contributors, including everybody here today, and expanding to Pat Donnelly, Lynn Douglas, Herb Lemkool, Hugh McManus, up in that time frame. And you will start to notice a little bit of a red rabbit eruption going on as we've made it kind of a tradition now as Halloween approaches to do the small company thing. And last but not least, the end of 2021 And again, raking the small companies over the coals and talking about a bunch of stuff. All right. Anything you'd like to add here, Ken?
No, but I think that the notebook does a really nice job in putting it into easy to read language. That's certainly very readable when you're sitting there just looking at it. It's not a chore or anything like that.
So what I
Mark,
thought,
was that last slide in scope for your upload? All those were?
hold
I
on.
just caught the microcap club, so I'm thinking that would have been the beginnings of our use of price to hope ratio too. I can't believe it didn't pick up on that.
Which one are you talking about on this
The
one?
microcap club, their view of the S curve and early stage companies.
Oh yeah, that was all back in this time frame. In fact, there's some a few months before that also. But the
I
S
didn't see
curves.
that in the concepts. It skipped over that concept.
Okay. I'm sure it'll come up again as we go through the years. But yeah, and Marty Feldman was a fun session also back on December 14th, 2021. His ability to look in two different directions. What I would like to do is basically give everybody a quick look. Ken, tell me if I'm getting a decent screenshot here.
You need to make it, there we go.
Okay.
Can you make it a little bit larger? There we go. That's good, Mark.
Okay, so going back to the home page, when you click in on bull sessions, any of them here in the series from starting from a couple of weeks ago to now, what you can see is, again, our trek through the individual years. So this will be 2021, all of those entries we were just talking about. And as you go down the page, again, if you're going down and just reading this, just to get a summary of the stuff that we had talked about, here we're admitting our ineptness, and I'm referring to the cost of speculation as tuition. So let's go there. All you got to do is click on this link. And if it's a subject you wanted to pursue, you're taken to the page where you can find the actual YouTube recording is right here. If you want to go back and listen to that part, I don't yet have the technology to just isolate it to that, but here is also the PDF. So you see Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady from back in that time frame. But as you go down in our tribute to Super Bowl commercials,
And a pint-sized version of one of your grandkids.
yep, the E-Trade baby, right? You can
Yep.
actually see some groundhog results from back then, by the way. But again, you can dig in and access. There's a lot of stuff here. But if you want to dig in and take a look a little bit deeper into the session, you can do that. So again, from the forum post, let's see if I can grab something maybe a little more specific to a company. Well, here's a discussion of par versus prove. Click in on that just to see what we get. And again, if you're chasing down a topic, you can see some references there. Some of the stuff we were talking about. We don't usually post this much, an explanation of Hugh McManus's Irish Spring. Again, the YouTube video is going to be right here, but here is the PDF for the session. And Ken, is this what you think that the audience might benefit from a little bit more? Just the awareness that they have the ability to do this?
Well, that, and if you're looking for a specific topic, this might help a little bit. To be honest, Mark, I don't know if I have the time to go back and preview a lot of old things. I have enough trouble staying current with the 8 or 10 things that I like to watch on a regular basis. So, but I do know that we have some people in the audience that are always asking us to go back and check things, and maybe we're going to be able to answer those questions in a better fashion by using these AI tools that we have right now.
Yeah, and we will be embedding even more AI type stuff. But I mean, this is Prove was showing up in our summaries and some of our dashboard type references back in that time frame. so you can actually see how that concept developed, along with some testing alongside triple play there. So again, just wanted to make the point that, again, you can chase a topic or a theme and get there.
Yeah. So, Mark, we have a roundtable coming up this evening, folks, and the roundtable this evening will be at the regular time. It'll be at 8 o'clock Eastern time, but we are going to be experimenting with changing the time of the roundtable. We're going to stick to our last Tuesday date, but in July, if you want to just mark on your calendar, when you register for the roundtable in July, we're going to have a starting time of 7 Eastern time. That's 6 Central, and I don't want to discount our friends in the mountain time zones and in the western time zones, but the vast majority of our audience comes from Eastern and Central time zones. So 7 o'clock start for Eastern, 6 Central, and we're going to try that in July and see what happens to the audience. We've had a lot of folks that tell us they'd like it to be a little bit earlier, but we also get a little bit of griping when we move it earlier. So we're going to kind of balance things out and see what happens for the next couple of months. In July, mark your calendars again. The roundtable will start at 7, and it will be on the last Tuesday of the month again.
I have had a number of people from the West Coast saying, at least you guys so reliably put up the YouTubes so I can catch them if I'm, coming home late from work in Seattle or whatever. So that's there. We will continue to try to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And there you go. You'll find roundtables on the YouTube Manifest Investing channel. So that's always there for you. Just wanted to spend a moment acknowledging Fred Smith, passed away just a couple of days ago at the age of 80. And Matt Spielman said that he was one of the best C students in history.
And I don't think his whole grade was that, but that's the legend. And even on the FedEx timeline, it says he got a quote unquote average grade for the paper that described the foundings of FedEx.
And I also want to point to Fred and his marketing department as being the reason for the biggest deluge of critical mail that I ever received as an editor at Better Investing Magazine. And some of you have heard this before, so forgive me, but I pointed out in one of those columns on the back page, this arrow in the logo. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. And so I got all kinds of emails and even some postcards that basically said, Mark, you've wrecked my life because now I only see the arrow.
I've never seen the arrow, but now I see it, Mark.
So
okay.
You are ruined going forward. So anyhow, and of course, there's the Rule of 5 picture again. That is our picture for this week. And I think we're good. Anything else you'd like to add, Ken? Anything we need to do? This is a clearer photo. Yeah.
Just a good afternoon to all of our audience, and I hope we see you at the roundtable this evening. Mark and I are going to present stocks. Ann Manning and Matt Spielman from Houston chapter are going to present stocks, and our friend Cy Lynch from Atlanta is going to present a stock. So we'll have 5 stocks for you and a couple of other tidbits. 8 o'clock Eastern time tonight at the roundtable. If you can't find a way to register, send me an email between now and, 5 o'clock Eastern, and I'll send you a link back.
All right. So with that, take care, everybody, and get out there and buy some of the stuff that I've been selecting for stocks. And I made the mistake of showing the Buttonwood portfolio.
How'd that happen?
All right. Take care, everybody.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good investing.
Bye-bye.